Hello there! It's really great to see you, and I do hope that you are well. I'm Jenny Kirk, welcoming you up here to Weir Yard, where today we're going to be taking a good close look at the latest release from Rapido Trains UK. It's the Highland Railway Big Goods, or as it later became known, the Jones Goods. There was actually, back in the 1890s, a pioneer, for the UK at least, of the 460 or 10-wheeler wheel arrangement. It was very popular overseas, particularly in North America, but this was the first time it had been tried out in the UK, and it was very successful indeed, spawning an awful lot more locomotives afterwards that took that wheel arrangement very, very successfully. That was probably one of the reasons why a single example was selected for preservation by the LMS, despite the fact that they had withdrawn the entire fleet by the early 1940s, and it's this locomotive that is still with us to this day. Resurrected by British Railways for rail tours in the late 50s, early 60s, it ensured that it was immortalised on screen in those magnificent men in their flying machines, and also that we can go and see it to this day in the museum in Glasgow. Now, I often get asked whether manufacturers will run out of prototypes to make models of, and I suppose the Jones Goods is one of those locomotives that illustrates that actually there is a huge wealth of untapped prototypes out there. It's never been done ready to run before, and certainly this is a great addition to the toolbox available to modelers. And given that this locomotive ran in rail tours on British Railways, as well as being used extensively by the Highland Railway and later the LMS too, it really is going to be quite useful. It made it as far south as Bedfordshire for filming that aforementioned film, and it's definitely one with an eye-catching array of pre-grouping liveries. There are actually 3 of the pre-grouping liveries available from Rapido. 2 are the Highland Railway Green, one in its as-preserved condition right now, one in its original 1890s running condition, and then there's that ochre livery, the Stroudley Improved Engine Green. When Stroudley moved to the Highland Railway, he took that colour with him, so it might be more familiar to a lot of people for the Terrier locomotives, but the Highland Railway Jones Goods received this in preservation in the late 50s, early 60s, and it's this livery that is visible in so many photographs from that period as the locomotive had a final hurrah on rail tours. Rapido Trains have very kindly sent over an example of this model, and they've chosen the original 1890s condition for us to take a good close look at. They have actually tooled up for a number of detail variants that were applied to the locomotive throughout its very long and industrious lifespan. So the example that you see on the screen during this review is the as-built variety, but they've also tooled up for a number of different variants, and we do have photographs of those to be able to show you. But before we get into the review, don't forget to hit that like button if you like what you see, and consider subscribing to the channel if you've not already done so. It's a really great and free way that you can help the channel and support us to keep making these videos that you want to see. But does the latest model from Rapido live up to the expectations, following as it does hot on the heels of the Y7, which really was a surprise winner for me here, and it's a locomotive that I really did like. We've gone from little to large. It's the Big Goods from the Highland Railway. Let's take a look and see just how well Rapido have done. Today's video comes in association with Train-O-Matic, makers of DCC decoders and accessories that are designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts. Find the full range available to order now at tramfabriek.co.uk. Additional support comes from...
This is Clark Railworks, and this is what we do. You'll know us from Ellis Clark Trains, and you'll get the same friendly expertise with us too. We've got a huge range of pre-owned model railways from all your favourite manufacturers, and maybe some you hadn't heard of before. It's the place to come for quality. We don't stock substandard models, and everything we sell is fully tested and photographed by model railway experts. No matter whether you model 00 gauge, N, HO or more, We have sought after models from all around the world, with new listings added every weekday. Check out what's available now at clarkrailworks.com and don't miss out on your latest loco.
One of the locomotives that I've been waiting with a great deal of excitement for is the Jones Goods from Rapido Trains. Now, this is one of the more unusual prototypes to get a ready-to-run release, and that's because the prototypes didn't actually last long enough to work under British Railways. They were all withdrawn by the LMS, but one example was selected for preservation, and that is number 103, which was actually restored for rail tour use in the late 1950s through to about the mid-1960s. And it's actually during that time that it had its big screen appearance in Those Magnificent Men in Their Flying Machines. Despite the nickname Jones Goods that was more commonly applied to the class by enthusiasts, it was actually Chief Engineer David Jones's Chief Draftsman David Anderson Hendry who suggested the 460 10-wheeler arrangement that, whilst common in other countries, this was the first time it had been employed in the UK. It was a handsome 460 with 20-inch by 26-inch cylinders, 5 foot 3.5-inch diameter driving wheels, and a tractive effort of 24,362 pounds. There were 15 of these built by Sharp Stewart of Glasgow, and actually the Highland Railway crews preferred to refer to them as the Big Goods. Number 103 to 117 were put to work between Perth and Inverness, and aside from some minor tweaks to the drafting arrangement, were an instant success. They were used extensively during the First World War as part of the Jellicoe Specials, shifting all of the goods up towards Scapa Flow to ensure that the Grand Fleet was fully coaled during the war without risking the ships at sea to carry the coal over anything other than the last few miles. The Highland Railway and the LMS made numerous changes to the Jones Goods, and the Rapido model is capable of incorporating all of the detail differences. With the first being withdrawn in 1929, by the time the whole class had been renumbered 17916 to 17930, it took until 1940 for the last, number 17925, originally number 112, to be condemned, although happily the LMS saw fit to preserve one of these historic machines and cosmetically restored Pioneer number 17916, which was Highland Railway number 103, and this was tucked inside St Rollock's Works along with the Caledonian Railway 422 until 1958, when the BR Scottish Region General Manager James Ness ordered it to be returned to service. Alongside other classic Scottish locomotives, they ran numerous rail tours around the Scottish region until 1965, where 103 was retired and restored to as close to original condition as possible, and is now one of the Glasgow Riverside Museum's star exhibits. The model from Rapido has 3 factory-fitted speakers, whether it comes factory-fitted with sound or whether you buy the DCC Ready version. All versions can be ordered with a discount through the affiliate link in the description box down below. This ready-to-run model is come through from Rapido, and they very kindly sent over this example for review. It comes in the now familiar Rapido Trains box, which is very substantial, and a lot of manufacturers are now starting to use this, and it really does work well. On the box we get a line drawing of the locomotive, and on the end of the box the example that has been sent over is the Jones Goods in Highland Railway light green. And this is the 1890s condition as number 106, and this is the DCC Ready example, although they do sell factory sound fitted versions. This is catalogue number 914002. Inside the box, for me, this is actually one of the most standout liveries. I think this is better even than the current preserved example that Rapido are doing in the slightly less ornate leaf green. But the yellow version is sure to prove incredibly popular. Inside the box, in standard clamshell, we've got the model itself, and there are some additional parts you can see here. which can be fitted, including some etched works plates, and these do look absolutely superb. You can see them there, and we've got some additional parts which are finished to match the livery of the model that they come with. What's interesting is, for the first time ever, we've got the model in two separate blister packs, which I've never really seen before. Slide them out of the outer, and then we can just remove these from within. It's quite easy to get them out, and this features a unique connection between locomotive and tender, which is really, really good. We don't get any of those pesky wires which can be snagged. And it's nice to see that manufacturers are really thinking about the different ways that they can just make the model more robust and easier to handle. This livery itself has this really lovely holly green, and you can see there it really does bring out the detail of the model. The model comes with this now familiar owner's manual, and this includes a detail of the prototype history that we just run through, some running information, and then also information on DCC fitting. And I will be doing a full DCC fit of this model utilising a Trainomatic 21-pin decoder. Again, these can be found through the link down below to the UK stockist of this brand, Tramfabriek. And there's plenty of space in the model, with those 3 factory-fitted speakers, also ensuring that if you want to go down your own sound-fitting version route, then it really is a doddle. We also have some information on fitting the additional features, although it should be noted that these front guard irons can only really be used if you have very generous curves, and the locomotive will not be able to negotiate train set curves if you have these fitted. With the model out of the packaging, we have a removable plastic coal load. It's quite a heaped load, and this can be taken out very readily. In fact, it's come out in the packaging and just rests in place on the coal area of the model. These were quite flat and shows that there was quite a generous water capacity in the prototype, and this actually works well in giving a lot of internal space for things like the decoder and stay alive if you wish to, while simultaneously remaining faithful to the prototype. On some of the long routes that these locomotives ran, that large water capacity was very, very useful, and that's one of the reasons that these had quite a generous tank for this. This particular livery doesn't have any branding on the tender, neither numbers nor HR branding, and this makes for a very, very neat side in between the quite crisp lining that is reproduced. You can see there that the finish has this really nice satin feel to it, which is certainly a good base either for a locomotive, which would be X-Works, not needing any additional rubbing down, or a light weathering, which would give an appearance of a working locomotive. The lining really is sublime. You can see there it's nice and straight and true, and we've got the vacuum hoses factory fitted, and these are picked out in a kind of browny red colour which matches the lining, and the hose itself in black. They're quite springy and do seem to be pretty well put on there. We've got turned metal buffer heads, and these are to the correct pattern. You can see there they almost look like valves from a car engine. We've got that very interesting taper style on the inside and the slightly domed heads on the outer edge. These fit into the shanks, which actually again picked out in that same sort of browny red colour, and this yellow band, which reminds me a little bit of some of the banding on resistors, and it really does pick them out nicely. That yellow lining also extends across the frames, and you can see there we have the axle boxes picked out, as well as the cutaways, which do give a bit more of a view of these fine spoked wheels. The green finish on the faces is really well done, and you can't really see any shiny metal. They've been chemically blackened to perfection. On the underside, the brake rigging is factory fitted, and we've also got this slimline tension lock coupling fitted into the socket at the back, which is easy to replace if you choose to, or just leave it be to match up with other ready-to-run rolling stock. We've also got a speaker grille which is hidden away there and shows the location of one of the speakers in the model. The connector between the locomotive and tender is of this multi-pin variety. It has a degree of side-to-side movement that allows this locomotive to negotiate curves well, and then we've also got these luffing buffers which go between the locomotive and tender, and these are sprung, which will also help give a prototype close coupling whilst not compromising the ride quality of the locomotive as a whole. I do like that lining on the sides there, and you can see we've actually got multiple greens. The light green is the bulk of the colour, but there's also this darker, almost like a holly leaf green, which picks out the outside of the panels. The lining too, we've got white, black, and that kind of brown red, which is the same colour it looks as the frame. I do like that we've got these springs picked out, and you can actually see all of the leaves in those springs. They're picked out, although they are, it seems, a solid moulding. And there's also a fine array of brasswork picked out in a perfect brass paint. Around the top of the coal load, we've got these factory-fitted coal greedy rails, and these would have just helped to keep the coal load in place. And I do like that flare at the top. It's very reminiscent of a lot of Victorian locomotives, and it's something which really does make these Victorian creations stand out, especially when you see them on the layout. We've also got a bell, it appears, on the side here with a slightly raised plate. These are very carefully picked out as part of the printing process, but do appear to be, at the very least, a moulded part that's been added on afterwards. The handrails are plastic at the front. They've got quite a spring to them, so they will take a few knocks. And then we've got some metal handrails, and these are nicely picked out in a kind of gunmetal colour, which really does look the part. There's a lamp iron on the back, and this is a metal part which has been factory fitted, plus some more handrails, again finished in this gunmetal, and then metal factory fitted. On the rear deck, we've got this black, which is a kind of a satin black. Against the light it does look shiny, but actually when viewed with the naked eye it really does look quite toned down. The water filler at the back includes again that characteristic flare out at the top and the flat lid in place above. The coal chute incorporates a number of quite complex curves. You can see how the plating bows down. We've got the liner rivets, and there are a couple of places where it appears that we've got parting points from the injection moulding tool. It's just a little bit difficult to see some of these, and that does feel a little bit proud. But what I would say, if you choose to discard the factory coal load, then a little bit of crushed coal would really work well to hide some of these, and will really add to the look of the tender. Looking to the inside of the cab, we've got the handbrake wheel picked out in white, and I really like that we've got this separate handle there just to help the crew wind that down. The rest of this, we've got additional lining, and it shows the pride that the Victorians had in their machinery, that this lining was applied somewhere that most people other than the crew would ever see. And that the coal hole, and we've got this kind of lip, is all picked out in the black. Checker plate design exists here on the footplate. This is moulded and really quite sharp. Today's video is sponsored by TMC, the Model Centre, your first choice for finding all of the models featured today at the best possible price at the link in the description. TMC also offers custom weathering and renumbering to any model, be it brand new or pre-owned. Check out their full pre-owned listings too, where you can be assured of quality as every item is screened and graded by professional staff. TMC, the Model Centre, your first choice for all aspects of modelling. The locomotive portion is really good and heavy, which hopefully will ensure that it's got some good adhesive weight. One interesting quirk of these locomotives is that the prototypes actually had flangeless centre drivers. It's a little bit tricky to get information on this online, but it appears that the locomotives retained these throughout their life and actually weren't none the worse for it. So in case anybody's wondering if we're going back to the days of Hornby 00, don't worry, that is prototypically accurate for this locomotive. It's actually the case on the prototype, I believe, that if they were both flanged, the flanges would actually rub each other, so another reason that they were that way. We have pickups from the outer two sets of wheels, which is a little bit interesting actually. I would have thought that we would have had wiper pickups on the centre as well, but there is a power connector across into the tender, and I'm just going to quickly look there. We do appear to have pickups from all 6 of the tender wheels, which takes place from this bus bar that is hidden away and appears to pick up from the centres, which is a really great and unobtrusive way of doing it. The 460 wheel arrangement is very much evident, and it's quite a strange arrangement of the wheels, with the front and centre drivers very close together, and then the final set of drivers set really quite far back, and this would allow a decent sized firebox to sit between the axle centres, which is probably one of the reasons why this centre set of drivers had to be moved all the way forward. The coupling rods are metal and really do have a lot of detail in them. They're not fluted as per the prototype, but I do like this really quite sturdy boss that appears here, connecting the connecting rods with the main rod here out to the cross slide. This again is all metal construction, and you can see there a huge amount of detail, and it does feel very robust. We've got slightly angled cylinders, and these are finished again in the green with the darker green outers and all of that resplendent lining. Underneath, the bogie frame is again quite substantial and is centrally mounted, and there does appear to be a reasonable amount of spring on this, and it'd be interesting just to see how well that is set from the factory to ensure that the locomotive runs well. We've also got the buffers, which are sprung, and to the same design on the tender. It is really quite a characteristic shape that they've got, again, like the valves in a car engine. And there's this large overhang, which is probably emphasised by the lack of those guard irons, which can be put on by the user, but beware, it will preclude the model from getting around tight curves. We have a factory-fitted coupling in a moulded pocket at the front here, but this can be pulled out, but it will leave the actual mounting pocket in place. It does look, though, that the bogie may well be symmetrical, so it could be possible to unscrew this and turn it round the other way if you're really bothered about this mounting being visible at the front. The lining really is quite subtle. We've got that yellow and the frames themselves in that kind of browny red. It really does set off the green so well. The running plate feels to be made of metal, and we've got this, again, really quite a complex shape, with the boiler being round and this merging into this flared out shape that covers the firebox casing. The splashers too have a huge amount of lining on, and you can see there's so much gone into this to really bring this livery alive. The cab has this rounded edge and the very peculiar shaped glasses at the front. These are flush glazed from the front with the edges picked out in this kind of brass coloured paint. The safety valves on top of the bonnet here do appear to be slightly at an angle to each other, and I suspect that's from the assembly. They are quite robust, and they feel like they could even be metal. In front of them we have the whistle. This is a plastic part, but it's well protected by the safety valve bonnets, and then we have this very slender pipe going back into the cab. The cab roof is white, and again we've got this very complex curved shape with the arced nature of it and the lip around the edge, but also the secondary arc at the front, just as per the prototype. In addition, we also have this metal part here. I'm not 100% sure what it is, but it is very robust, whatever it is. It looks like almost like a lamp iron, but it's in a very strange location. The sides of the cabs are quite slab-sided, and I suppose that the crews would have appreciated the extra protection given the routes over which these locomotives worked. The cab is quite open. You can see here we've got wire handrails, and I do like this colour inside, this kind of almost yellowy cream colour, and this really does give an amazing view of the backhead detail. This includes gauges that look good enough to work, with the needles showing the locomotive to be in steam, and a huge amount of additional detail parts which do appear to have been separately added. Looking to the front, we've got the sand boxes which are integral to the front splashers, and we've got the works plate there. Even though they do give you some separate etched plates to add onto the model, I don't think that they're 100% necessary. These are very, very sharply printed. You can see the multiple colours with the brass, the red and the black picking out the bolts that would have held it in place. I think anybody who's not too bothered would actually be quite happy with what you do receive. Looking to the side of the model, there is what appears to be just a little dimple in the side of the boiler there, and I'm not sure what's going on. It looks almost like a moulding flaw, but I'm not 100% sure. It's definitely something that I'm going to go away and look up and see if I can find any evidence for it in photographs, but I'm going to show it you there just so that you're aware that it's something I've spotted. We've got metal handrails that run the length of the boiler, and this very characteristic high dome with almost like a nipple on top. This is something that is in keeping with the prototype. One thing I really do like about these is that the smoke box and the funnel are picked out in this almost like a stove black finish. This is quite different to the black that you can see here in the top of the tender, and that's fully in keeping. It was a different kind of paint that would have been used to be able to withstand the high temperatures, and this always has a kind of matte finish. The funnel on this model also includes these interesting louvres at the front, and that again is fully in keeping with the prototype. And then we have the brass painted rim at the top, which is really nicely done. Looking down, it's completely dark, but there's no sign of the bottom in there, which is something which can be a little bit of a bugbear with some models, where you can actually see that the funnel just goes down and ends. In fact, at certain angles you can see that there's space all the way down, and I can just about see the bogie moving about down there. The front face of the locomotive is captured perfectly. We've got quite a plain buffer beam with this extra red panel in the centre, different from the browny red of the frames, and we've got this very characteristic flared out front, which reminds me a little bit of the design of the Terrier locomotives. Smokebox dart is separately finished. Again, it's picked out in that gunmetal colour, but on this example it does appear to be just a little bit loose, and you can see there that it is possible to spin this, and it is an area which I'm not quite sure whether this is by accident or by design, but on the real locomotives these two handles were able to be moved separately, with one unscrewing the boss which held the smokebox door shut, and then the other one being allowed to move almost like a door handle to unlock it and allow it to open. During the review you might have noticed that the smokebox dart was initially loose. I did comment about that, and then in some of the photographs on Weir Yard and the running footage it had disappeared altogether, and some internet reviewers might have latched onto this and made a big thing about it, complete with clickbait title. But actually I always think that rather than moaning on Facebook and making a big deal about it, it's quite easy just to drop the company an email and just query about these things. I think it's a much fairer way of measuring the calibre of a model about what the company does when something goes wrong, and in this instance Rapido Trains very quickly dispatched not one but two spare smokebox darts. So I'm quite pleased with Rapido's very quick response. There was no issues, no problems. It was sent out by 24-hour track delivery, and I'm going to be able to very easily repair the model, and it will go on untoward to that little issue. And I think that that's a much better measure of how well a company deals with any small issues such as these. We have another metal lamp iron fitted at the top at the front, and then the arc of the metal handrail goes neatly over the top, with the arc matching that of the smoke box. Further down we have the rather curious flat-mounted vacuum standard. And this is something that's quite a quirky feature of these locomotives, and it sits in between these very elongated triangular frames. We've also got there what look to be lifting holes, which I suspect might have been used to be able to lift the locomotive, with the hooks from an overhead crane being able to latch into there. Looking further down at the wheels, we've got some really quite intricate lining on the spokes, on the counterweights, and then moving into the chassis. There's plenty of detail picked out here, and we've got factory fitted brake blocks and factory fitted brake rigging in its entirety. In fact, out of the box, there really is nothing that most users would feel obliged to fit unless they were going to either run these on very, very generous curves or put it into a display cabinet. Cab fall plate is in two parts. This is metal, and it does appear to have quite a pleasing mechanism which allows it to be posed at whatever angle you wish. To join the locomotive and tender, it's simply a case of either on the track or on a flat surface, line them up and then gently push them together. It does seem to be one that doesn't automatically self-locate. I would very much recommend that you use a piece of track to line these up, preferably on your layout. And I've got a piece here, and with that in place, then just gently push them together. Putting the locomotive on the DC rolling road, it performs out of the box really well in both directions. It is apparent that the more it runs, the smoother it gets, and this is something that Rapido allude to in the running in section of the manual. The firebox flicker is permanently on as red when the locomotive receives power on DC. We now come to the DCC fitting part of the video, and I'm going to be using the Trainomatic 21-pin decoder, although any 21-pin decoder should work just fine. The space available is designed to take an ESU Lock Sound 5, which is what the factory sound fitted options are fitted with, and as that is one of the largest 21-pin decoders on the market, it means anything else that you choose should fit just fine. This is where the removable connector between locomotive and tender does come into its own. First up, we need to remove the factory fitted brake rigging, as this is otherwise in the way of the access to the screws. And the best way to do this appears to be just gently pinch with a pair of tweezers where the brake blocks are, and just gently pull them upwards to release them from the chassis. Take care here. It's an interesting design, and it does appear that the brake rigging has been glued to the brake blocks. So 2 of these have left the brake blocks in situ, and the other 4 have come out cleanly like this. This then allows easy access down to the 4 screws that we need to undo. Ignore these, they hold the bus bars in place for the pickups on the wheels. We need these recessed screws. And just gently with a crosshead screwdriver, just do it gently so we don't chew up the threads. And we've got 2 more hidden just behind where the coupling mounts. With those 4 removed, the tender body just gently slides out. Now do be careful, because the rear sandbox does stay in place, as does the handbrake standard at the front, and we need to make sure that we don't cause any damage to those. There's a very large cast block inside the tender, giving it its weight, and there's some handy access points just to carefully start to lever up the 21-pin blanking plate. Do a little bit from each side, being very careful not to bend any of the pins. It's then a case of taking our 21-pin decoder and make sure that we line up the alignment pin, which is blanked off, with the missing pin on the socket. Line those up and then very gently just rock that down into place. And you can see that there's still a reasonable amount of space left, which, should you wish to fit something like a stay alive, this can be fiddled in to the remaining space. And then it's a case of making sure that we've got the tender body the right way round. And this actually is one of the easier to slide on and off. It is helped by having this sandbox at the back, which just helps with the location. And it actually clips down into place, and then it's simply a case of screwing the screws back in. Don't over torque these screws. You don't want to strip the thread or chew the heads. Once those screws are in place, it's just simply a case of carefully refitting the factory brake rigging. This does appear to be a little bit complicated by the fact that some of the brake shoes have come out and others haven't. So just gently find the holes and the clips and slide those down into place. And if needs to be, we can just use a pair of tweezers to get that to line up with the hole. Once we're happy, then it's just a case of lining the locomotive and tender back up, pushing the connector back together, and then as standard out of the box, the DCC address will be set to number 3. We can put that on the programming track and change that to whatever number fits in with your locomotive numbering scheme. And then it's off to Weir Yard for a test to see how the locomotive performs. On the track, the model actually performed really well. I had it pulling a train of 6 bogie coaches on the main line at Weir Yard, where it handled these with ample left in reserve. There's a lot of die-cast metal, including the running plate on this model, and it gives it plenty of grip to be able to haul a sizable train. On the Torture test track, though, it did seem to struggle on the 5% grade, though this isn't unusual, and a lot of other models do as well. It's a pretty big challenge for any locomotive, and the Jones Goods only managed 2 ventilated vans without starting to slip. It also got round the Radius 1 curves, and through all of the point work there were no issues whatsoever. It's a very sure-footed model and looks amazingly graceful as it glides around the layout. The balance between the front bogie and the rest of the wheels is perfectly done, so there's no sign of wheels lifting, and that front bogie does guide it through the track work without any excessive overhang being noted. On DCC, the firebox flicker is controlled from F3 and F4 with the Train-O-Matic decoder, with the F3 handling the red light and the F4 handling the yellow. I did find that actually the novelty of this does wear off on just plain DCC running, but it's nice to know that it's there. If you go for this DCC sound fitted option, then this is keyed in with the appropriate sounds, and it does give much more back to the user with it being synced to the coal shoveling sounds, which I do think is a really great addition. My final verdict on the performance is very good. It's a well-balanced locomotive with great weight distribution, and I really do like the added features. Whilst the version that was sent for review is the DCC Ready one without the sound installation, the fact that this has 3 factory-fitted speakers, one presumes there's one in the tender, one underneath the chimney, and another somewhere elsewhere in the locomotive, that really does bode well for a really good and full sound. It's often the case that any model that is chugging along with the sound going, but that sound coming from the tender, this quickly rumbles the fact that the speaker is not placed well. That doesn't appear to be the case with this model, and I do look forward to trying it out with a sound installation in the future. I think it's a model that would very much benefit from this indeed. Whilst the price does seem to be quite expensive, being just north of the £200 mark for the DCC Ready version, what you do get is an incredible model, and the livery application on these pretty pre-grouping examples really is second to none. As we looked over this model, I really was blown away at just how amazing the pre-grouping period is. And I would like to press upon Rapido to definitely consider producing their generic coaches in appropriate Highland Railway livery, because I think they would look absolutely superb behind this fine locomotive. So we come now to the scores. First up is build quality, and this model is really well put together. There's some really great choices of materials to ensure that the detail really is fine, but without compromising durability, and any parts that are really quite slender do appear to have been made from a variety of different metals to ensure that they really do the job. One area though where there was a little bit of fragility was on the tender, where the brackets that would hold the fire irons did seem to struggle to stay put, and I had to glue one of them at one point during the review, but it did seem to be exposed enough that it tended to get knocked off, which I suppose is just one of the things that you have to take for granted with very, very fine detail that you have to be ever so careful in handling. But in terms of everything else, I thought that it was superb. And a particular favourite area of mine is the cab back head detail, which was very, very robust indeed. And the finish on that was superb. So I'm going to give this a 9.3. Next up is running quality, and on Weir Yard the model performed really well, hauling those 6 bogie coaches like they practically weren't there, and it was quite clear that if I'd have loaded it up more, it was going to cope pretty well. The more it ran in, and the better that performance got, and there was no sign that it needed a stay alive adding. This is just with the basic decoder, and it performed really, really well. Through the point work, there was no issues whatsoever, and following through the curves, even down to radius 1, it actually did perform well, but you won't be able to add those extra guard irons and frame detail if you're going to be trying to run it on a layout like that. So all in all, I'm going to give this a 9.8. On DCC fitting and innovation, I really like the fact that there are 3 speakers factory fitted. That really does suggest that a lot of thought has gone into this. The DCC fitting is really quite straightforward, although the brake rigging was a bit tricky to remove, and I was left wondering if I was doing it in the correct manner in the way that it separated from the chassis, but there was no harm done. There's plenty of space in the tender. If you want to add a stay alive, that's really easy to do, and again, aftermarket sound fitting is a doddle because of those factory fitted speakers. So I'm going to give this a 10 out of 10. On accuracy and quality of finish, I was really impressed with the livery application. The Highland Railway green really does look superb, and it sets off the detail on this model so well. The back head detail is truly superb, and there wasn't really anything that I could point to and give fault. Even the most minor details are perfectly replicated, and despite the fact that the works plates are really superbly printed, they do give you extras that are etched in the detail pack, and it does feel like they're going above and beyond. So the only score that I can really give this is the full 10 out of 10. On value for money, the model is expensive, let's not beat around the bush on that, but no more so than models coming from other manufacturers, and you do get a lot for your money, for a ready-to-run example of a prototype that would probably be considered quite niche. It's certainly never been offered ready-to-run before from any manufacturer, and what we get here is very much the definitive Highland Railway big goods or Jones goods. I'm going to give this a 9.0 out of 10, and it's certainly one of my favourite models this year. The livery application is superb, as is the innovation in terms of the speakers, and that firebox flicker is just something a little bit extra. The backhead detail is sublime, and this is definitely one of the best offerings that we've had from Rapido. As I said before, they are selling out fast, so do hurry and be sure to spot the special edition in that Stroudley improved engine green. Spoiler, it's a yellow, because that really does look amazing. I'm really looking forward to seeing what future versions are released from Rapido, and I really do hope, fingers crossed, that we get some of their generic coaches in a suitable livery to go behind these beautiful locomotives. As always, I hope you have really enjoyed this video and it's been informative to you. Now, we do have some affiliate links down below which take you to TMC, the Model Centre, where all the different versions of the Rapido models can be bought. They are all available either as DCC ready or factory sound fitted, but be advised they have proven very, very popular, and Rapido have said that a number of the liveries are already sold out with them. So if this is a must-have item, then don't delay and grab one, otherwise you'll be at the mercy of the eBay scalpers, no doubt. I'd love to hear from you as well in the comments section down below. Let me know what you think about this model. Is this one you've got on order? Have you already received yours? What do you think about it? And perhaps this is something that one or two of you have maybe taken a hit for the team by taking on building this yourself from kits or scratch building. It's always the way, isn't it? Just as you finish doing that build, a ready-to-run model comes along that would have saved you all the hassle. But of course, if you're building a kit, then it probably stands to reason that you're doing that because you actually enjoy building the kit. Do let me know in the comments section down below. And of course, as always, please like, share and subscribe. And of course, as well, don't forget to purchase your Monday Club pin badges. They're proving very, very popular. It's a great way of signalling your support for the channel and the Monday Club live stream every single Monday from 7 UK time. We're on to batch 2. That's the green Monday Club badges. And they're actually going really well. We probably should have ordered a lot more in the batch. And when they're gone, they're gone. We change the colour each time, and they get you an array of discounts at a number of different participating retailers, model railway clubs for when they hold their exhibitions, and indeed we're also bringing online museums and preserved railways to access reduced fares as well. You can get the full list of that at our website, but always great, and thank you for your amazing support. Until next time, this is me, Jenny Kirk, saying you take great care of yourself. Happy modelling, bye for now. Today's video comes in association with Trainomatic, makers of DCC decoders and accessories that are designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts. Find the full range available to order now at tramfabriek.co.uk. Additional support is provided by...
This is Clark Railworks, and this is what we do. You'll know us from Ellis Clark Trains, and you'll get the same friendly expertise with us too. We've got a huge range of pre-owned model railways from all your favourite manufacturers, and maybe some you hadn't heard of before. It's the place to come for quality. We don't stock substandard models, and everything we sell is fully tested and photographed by model railway experts. No matter whether you model double O gauge, N, HO or more, we have sought after models from all around the world with new listings added every weekday. Check out what's available now at clarkrailworks.com and don't miss out on your latest loco.
Today's video is sponsored by TMC, the Model Centre, your first choice for finding all of the models featured today at the best possible price at the link in the description. TMC also offers custom weathering and renumbering to any model, be it brand new or pre-owned. Check out their full pre-owned listings too, where you can be assured of quality as every item is screened and graded by professional staff. TMC, the Model Centre, your first choice for all aspects of modelling. I'd like to thank everybody over on Patreon, and an extra special huge thanks goes out to our Patreon heroes. Without you guys over on Patreon, we really wouldn't be able to keep making the video content that you see on this channel. And don't forget that you can also head on over to patreon.com/JenniferKirk and check out the different tiers of rewards. Thank you so much. You are absolute legends.